Indianapolis has always been the default site for the Final Four. So if there's some sort of disruption, terrorist attack, whatever, they always know that they can go to Indianapolis.
Indy's reputation literally saving the 2021 NCAA men's basketball tournament at the height of the pandemic. The city pulling off hosting the entire competition. Fast forward to 2024, one of the biggest years ever for Indianapolis, serving as host to showcase the best basketball players, swimmers, and entertainer in the world.
Good evening, everyone, from Indianapolis, serving as our backdrop for a gathering of the best in the NBA.
In Paris, this NFL stadium setting turned into swimming venue, the site of the United States Olympic swim trials.
Well, hello, Indianapolis.
Now, Indianapolis preparing to make 2025 as big or bigger when it comes to hosting marquee events.
The road to WrestleMania begins at the Rumble.
I'm stronger. WWE Royal Rumble.
Indianapolis is the place for basketball. And the WNBA is taking notice, awarding Indy its first ever WNBA All-Star Game.
The glue keeping much of this successful model together, the Capital Improvement Board in Indianapolis. We talked to its leader on how the organization works and its impact on the state of Indiana on this edition of the Business and Beyond podcast. Hello and welcome to the Business and Beyond podcast presented by PNC. I'm Gary Dick. Well, those are the sounds of progress, construction on multi-million-dollar projects, improvements, and investments. Indiana's marquee sports venues, convention center, and hotels that have helped put Indianapolis on the map as a premier host city. One of the main engines driving this success, the Capital Improvement Board, celebrating 60 years in 2025, playing a key role in financing, building, and maintaining the highest profile facilities in Indiana. And I am pleased to be joined on the podcast this week by Andy Mallon. Andy is the executive director of the Capital Improvement Board, a quasi-governmental agency that does a lot, finances, builds, maintains really some of the highest profile properties in Indianapolis, from the Indiana Convention Center, Lucas Oil Stadium, Gainbridge Fieldhouse, and more. And Andy, I really appreciate you taking the time to join the podcast.
Thank you very much, Gary. It's honored to be on with you today.
Well, I tell you, to say you're busy, a busy guy and a busy organization is really an understatement. I know Indianapolis, from an event standpoint, coming off perhaps its biggest year ever in 2024, perhaps more, even more ahead in 2025. But before we get into that, because a lot of people hear of and maybe know of the CIB, the Capital Improvement Board, but maybe don't understand the significance of this organization, what it does. It was founded, as I look back 60 years ago, I guess, this year, so 1965. Give us that thumbnail description of the Capital Improvement Board and what it does.
Absolutely. No, I appreciate you going back and taking a look. The Capital Improvement Board was created by the General Assembly and state government for Marion County, really in its infancy to build a convention center in downtown Indianapolis. And that's what they did. They worked hard at it. That was in the middle of a mayoral transition. And that's what they did. We built the Indiana Convention Center. It opened in 1972. And it really was the anchor and has been the anchor for the event business and event infrastructure that the city leaders, 60 years ago envisioned. And then leaders since then have carried on that vision. They've handed the baton one after the other to each other to build the event industry. And it's really event tourism that we see in downtown Indianapolis. And that, makes everybody feel good when, we have the NBA All-Star Game or a Final Four, or they see the Blue Jackets from the FFA teenagers that come every year, or the firefighters that come to and stay downtown and really swarm out to all parts of Indianapolis, and we love entertaining them. And that's really what it's about. It's about creating an environment and putting on the best kind of Hoosier hospitality that we can. The CIB's role in that is to build the buildings. So we built the convention center, we built Market Square Arena, we built Conseco Fieldhouse, now Gainbridge Fieldhouse, we built Hoosier Dome, we built Lucas Oil Stadium, and the new projects we have coming on. We're looking to build a soccer stadium should that deal move forward. And what we are working right now on is an expansion of the convention center and the construction of a 800-room event-centric, group-oriented hotel right next door to the convention center on Pan Am Plaza.
Yeah, as you look at the convention center, as you mentioned, the CIB formed initially to build the convention center, and I don't know if they're even keeping track on how many expansions now this represents over the years. I remember I remember the Hoosier, what was then the Hoosier Dome, was really an extension or expansion, right, of the Indiana Convention Center. And
that's right.
What the convention center itself, through its various iterations and growth, has meant to Indianapolis, you probably hard to overstate the impact that the convention center has had.
Absolutely. No, I mean, it really has been the engine that moves this industry and moves our hospitality industry. And I'm not saying that because, I get to work there. Mm-hmm. I'm saying it because it really does drive all of the revenue that allows us to build these amazing buildings, right? The hotel taxes, the food and beverage taxes, car rental taxes. We've worked hand in glove with the city administrations, with the state house. And it's really a point of pride with all of the relevant government stakeholders across politics that these taxes that are generated by visitors go back into our facilities, and we're able to make this incredible environment for the continued growth of this industry. I mean, it's 83,000 people that our event and hospitality industry touches in central Indiana. That's the number of people that are employed just in this industry alone, which is just really incredible when you think about it. We have created an ecosystem, and it includes everybody: hotels, restaurants, IMPD, public safety, DPW, Sports Corp, Visit Indy, Downtown. Everybody really does work together in a really special way, to be honest, a way that I think makes a lot of cities envious. Mm-hmm. Because we just don't have the territorialism. We don't have the issues that people might have, because we all share in our success.
Yeah. Give us an update on this latest expansion of the convention center. And you mentioned the new, the Signia Hotel, which is going up now. And if you think about all of the projects going on in downtown Indianapolis, not necessarily related to CIB, but from, Elanco to all the things going on in and around Gainbridge, Circle Center, really, I think a tipping point, another for Indianapolis. How about the hotel? Because that is going to be obviously a major property. It's going to change the skyline too. It's going to be very visible too. Where do things stand with that project?
The hotel project really started in 2018, 2019, before the pandemic, and then we were able to survive it. We had to delay it a couple of years, and it really was touch and go. And we've had to adjust both the partners we've had, their roles. The financing, it originally started out as a public-private partnership. And we've had to pivot and took over 100% of the financing to get that out of the ground. It really is a necessity. We have had the benefit of having multiple shows, 18, 20 shows that come every single year. And as our event industry has grown and our facilities have grown, those shows have grown. And those shows are starting to outpace the four corners of the convention center and Lucas Oil Stadium. And it really was getting to the point that if we didn't grow, those folks would grow out of Indianapolis, and that's something we could let happen. So to go from the big question marks of whether this project was actually ever going to happen, and we're staring out the windows of the convention center and Lucas Oil Stadium, looking at Pan Am Plaza, to where we are now is really remarkable and exciting. We are out of the ground. We have the skeleton of the project that is up probably 10 floors and growing a floor a week. Next week, we start bringing in the glass, and we'll start cladding the outside, or hanging that glass curtain wall, which will be beautiful. It's not just going to be change or an addition to the skyline. It's going to be a building architecturally that'll change what people think of Indianapolis.
Yeah.
And we just couldn't be more excited about it. It's been challenging. It's a tough time to be building anything.
Mm-hmm.
When you have, the LEAP projects in Boone County, and you have the battery projects in Kokomo, and you have the hospital project at IU Health.
North Side, yeah.
All the developments that you were asking about. Well, there's only so many people that can build these massive buildings in the region. So we've really looked and worked carefully with our local contractors. We talked to those other projects, making sure we're trying to get all of our schedules aligned. And it's not easy, and we're gonna, we've had some cost escalation, but it's worth it. This year was the best year for Indy hotels ever, right? And the best day, the best weekend, the best Sunday, right? All happened in 2024, and really, this project's coming at the right time. Visit Indy shattered its sales record this past year, and that's without selling a single room in the Signia yet, right? Because we don't have, it's not built. We haven't started selling rooms yet. So we're hitting it at exactly the right time to expand those shows, bring new shows in. This hotel will allow us to host 2 shows back to back or simultaneously. It's really an incredible opportunity.
Yeah, I want to talk about the competitive nature of entertainment and sports. But first of all, you mentioned 2019 because you came on board as executive director of the CIB in 2019. Very fortuitous timing, I guess you could say, because legislatively there were some moves made to put the CIB, I think, on firm footing, and then the pandemic hit. And for all of the positives going on now, the excitement going on now, how scary was it back then? I mean, as you and I were talking off mic here a while back, or a few minutes ago, you really wondered, when or if you'd be able to open the doors again. It was a tough time.
Yeah, no. One of the things that we were proud of, and as the baton was passed to me from my predecessor, and we had conversations about this, the convention center had never closed, right? We had never canceled a show before. Right? Shows had moved on, shows had chosen different places or whatever, but we as a venue had never had to cancel a show. Through 5 different expansions, we never had to cancel an event.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden, because of a virus, we're canceling every event and we're locking the doors. And it's something that never happened before. What I was told and what I've learned since is generally the event industry weathers recessions pretty well. People still travel, whether it's for business or whatever. So it's not recession proof, but it is not as hampered as other industries. Well, the exact opposite happened here. The event industry and meeting industry was the hardest hit, the longest hit. And we were terrified that we weren't gonna, and really questioning whether we were gonna open the doors again. But I will say this, that was in the back of our minds. In the front of our minds was everybody in city government, state government, all the nonprofit world, everyone in our industry, all the hotels, the hotel agent, associations, all working together, not to say, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? But deciding together, this is how we're going to do it. This is how we're going to open. We're going to do this safely. We're going to do this the best you possibly could do it, given the circumstances. And I think it's a huge point of pride for myself, and I know for everybody that weathered that storm, that we were able to do that. We never, turned on each other. We worked together and made sure that everybody's running in the same direction. That's really what's special about Indianapolis. That's what we do.
Yeah, I know you had some youth events, sporting events, and activities and things that were beneficial. But also, as I think back on this, of course, there was the Indianapolis hosting the entirety of March Madness, which
that's right. No, I mean, and that was
just unbelievable. That's amazing. Yeah,
it was an incredible point of pride. And we were just talking about this the other day. I was having lunch with Patrick Talty at the Sports Corp, and the stories behind that they're absolutely amazing, right? Like, we didn't know what we were able to do. We knew we were able to do these youth sports events, and we were saying, okay, we're going to do these youth sports events really, really well in the middle of the summer. We did it safely. We had good track records. People weren't having super spreader events. It's like, okay, how do we do this so that we can get a college basketball season in, right? How can people in the beginning of in the third and fourth quarter of 2020 start playing basketball again? So we pitched the idea of a bubble, right? Now, the NBA did a bubble in Orlando, but we were saying, all right, because of our infrastructure, because we have all these hotels connected to the convention center, and we're able to control the convention center, we can host all your basketball, right? And we're playing phone tag with different schools that wanted to get some of their schedule in, and eventually we were able to get those in. And that's all happening in this same sort of environment and milieu with the NCAA down the street, right? And they're seeing what we're trying to do. We're trying to get basketball played. They're trying to figure out what they're going to do. And then we end up getting that together. We had a really good FIBA basketball tournament in the bubble, in the convention center. We were able to pull off a couple other college basketball tournaments and really started talking about the idea of, pitching this to every conference, every basketball team, every university, that we could. We did, it was a huge effort, and I'm so proud of it. And then ultimately being able to talk to our friends that literally are neighbors at the NCAA and say, look, we can do this. They say, we want to do a tournament, March Madness, and Indianapolis is the place that can host it. And so we started talking about that in late 2020, and it is amazing that we were able to pull it off. You could only pull it off in Indianapolis with 25% occupancy, right? Yeah. Like, I don't think anybody has enough hotel rooms to have the whole tournament in one city for under normal circumstances. But yeah, I mean, it was really our Rubicon, and we had to have that in 2021 to show the world that these events can come back, that they can be done. We can come back. We can be safe, we can be responsible, but we can also bring these events on.
But you had to have people, as I hear you talk about that, who would dare to dream big, to say, hey, we can pull this off, but then have the guts to actually pull it off, because you go out there and say you're going to do it, you can't go halfway. You got to be all in on that, and Indianapolis did it.
That's exactly right. I mean, and I think that's what's really special about Indiana and in central Indiana and the city of Indianapolis and this event industry. We had 100% confidence in our ability to do this, right? We dare to dream big, and we dare ourselves to do better and better every event. We want to be the basis by which other events are compared, right? And I think you saw the best example of this before I even started, which was the Super Bowl and what we were able to do to that fan experience, which really is just a football game, right? But to really bring the community together and have a festival celebrating the NFL in a way that no one else had, and that people still aspire to do. And we changed how Super Bowls are done. And we do this. We try to do the same thing with the conference championship, Big Ten conference The football championship, we did the same thing with the CFP in 2022, the NBA All-Star game this past year, the swimming trials, show after show after show. We just challenge ourselves to outdo ourselves and then show each of these groups how it's supposed to be done.
Much more ahead with Andy Mallon. He's the executive director of the Capital Improvement Board here in Indianapolis. We'll talk about competition. It is getting increasingly fierce for events and both sporting and entertainment events. A lot of cities getting into the mix in bigger and better ways. We'll talk about that and a lot more when the Business and Beyond podcast returns.
At PNC Bank, we're committed to making a difference in the lives of our customers and communities by helping them move forward financially. As a Main Street bank, we try to do right by our customers with every encounter. Our local teams offer personalized financial advice to help guide you in making the best decision. We're proud to be part of your community. PNC Bank. See how we can make a difference for you at pnc.com. Copyright 2022, the PNC Financial Services Group, Inc., all rights reserved.
And welcome back to the Business and Beyond podcast presented by PNC. My guest this week is Andy Mallon. He is the executive director of the Capital Improvement Board, that quasi-governmental agency that finances, builds, maintains high-profile events here in Indianapolis, from Lucas Oil Stadium to Gainbridge Fieldhouse, Victory Field, the Indiana Convention Center. A very important organization in our city for a number of reasons. And Andy, we were talking in the first part of the podcast about the events that Indianapolis hosts. And I think coming off, a diversity of events, because coming off of 2024, I think a great example, you hosted everything from the U.S. Olympic swim trials, which again, in terms of putting Indianapolis out there in unique or rarefied air to build those Olympic swimming pools inside of Lucas Oil Stadium, national spotlight on NBC for 8 or 9 nights, whatever that was. And then you end up the year with 3 nights of Taylor Swift. So I think that's probably a pretty good example of the kinds of shows that Indianapolis is now putting on.
Absolutely. No, I mean, every show is different, right? Every show is special, but what made 2024 just above and beyond our normal year was the number of just globally impactful events that happened in Indianapolis, right? And you could go through the calendar from the NBA All-Star game. We had the eclipse, and for some reason, God smiled on us, and there was perfect weather where other cities in the path of totality were having clouds and storms. We had the most beautiful day in Indianapolis that we possibly could. NASA moved in. We're doing educational programming from the Speedway and having parties at White River State Park, right? And another globally significant event that people will have pictures of and associate with Indianapolis. That was the best Sunday in hotel revenue history in the history of Indianapolis. And then and that's not something we planned. We didn't book that. Leonard Hoots didn't go out and book the celestial beings. Even though, he might claim credit for it. I'll let him do it because he's an amazing, amazing talent. But it's and then we move on to just incredible things. The Catholic Eucharistic Congress that came, we knew that was coming, obviously, and it just blew our socks off. The number of people at an event that hadn't been scheduled or planned or put on in 80 years comes to Indianapolis, and it's 100,000 visitors and over several days, and it was just an incredible experience. So vastly different, but globally significant than the eclipse or the NBA All-Star game or what have you. And then to go to just have an incredible first time ever to have a Olympic swimming event in a football stadium. I always joke that thank God it didn't leak because we don't have a drain down there.
Right.
But we worked with our partners at Citizens Energy Group and the city, and we were able to just tens of millions of gallons of water to build 2.5 Olympic-sized swimming pools. Never been done before. The largest organized swimming event in the history of Western culture. Just an incredible thing. Then move on to just the most impactful concert tour ever. The last stop of the Eras Tour for Taylor Swift. Just an amazing 3 nights of just positivity. Obviously, great performance. And an unbelievable performer, but the visitors that came and the positivity they all shared made the city glow, and we did well financially. Right, it was the best producing, highest economic impact of any of the U.S. cities was felt in Indianapolis. So, it's a special year, global importance, a number of shows, all of. At the same time, we broke records in every one of our annual shows, whether it's, Gen Con, FDIC, I think got close to a record, Comic-Con, even PASIC, which is our percussive arts. They're usually around 5,000 folks. They come every year. We love them. They're based in Indianapolis, and they broke their record too. You know what I mean? And it's just great to see this rising tide raising all of the boats.
How do you stay competitive in this environment? Because as you look at cities, not just here in the Midwest, but throughout the country, building new stadiums, bigger and bolder stadiums, dome stadiums, expansions of their convention facilities and those types of things. At the same time, conferences like the Big Ten expanding nationally now on the West Coast as well as the East Coast and the middle of the country. How much pressure is there to compete in that environment? I mean, for example, Nashville's got a new stadium, I think, right, coming online that they're going to have and be an increasing competitor. What does it take, or how important is it to kind of stay on the cutting edge of what you're doing?
It's really, really important to keep tabs on all of those things. But I've said it before, I'll say it again. Indianapolis is America's best event city. And it's not necessarily because we have the newest facilities or anything like that. It's because of the 60 years of history of developing our event industry and our event infrastructure so centrally located in downtown Indianapolis, where we have 6 or 7 connected hotels, huge hotels, connected right into the convention center, connected to Lucas Oil Stadium, 3 blocks from Gainbridge Fieldhouse, around the corner from Victory Field and White River State Park, right near all the event venues at IU Indy. That development started 60 years ago with the decision to construct the Indiana Convention Center in downtown. And then it grew out of that same instinct to keep everything centrally located. In our central business district. That is different than any other city in the country. That plus the 60 years of developing the talent that works in those buildings and the culture whereby we all work together is why people are competing with us.
Yeah.
And that's how I'd phrase it. I think these folks are trying to get the events that we regularly get. And they're looking at Indianapolis as, why is Indianapolis getting such and such an event and we're not? So I really think they're chasing us. That being said, there's incredible buildings being built. I mean, and incredible money being spent. SoFi and Los Angeles, just an incredible building, an incredible complex, who also included a convention hall, a set of convention halls right next to their amazing football stadium, because that's what we do, right? It makes them able to activate that space when there's, other weekends when there's not football. And that's something that we do that it's very hard for other cities to do, is to make use of these facilities when you're not playing football, or you're not playing basketball, right? We do that in incredible ways because they're all centrally located, and we use them for our conventions. So yeah, I think we are in a really good competitive position with respect to other cities. What we struggle with is, being in the Midwest, right? And that's why years like 2024 are so important, because it kept Indianapolis the center of attention for folks across the country, across sports, across different groups and different eyeballs are watching Indianapolis. You always have racing fans watching in May, but we had, the NBA descended upon Indianapolis and saw what we had to offer. And then the swimmers from across the country came, and it's not just the competitors, it's the swim clubs that come and watch their heroes in mass to aspire to, being in the Olympic trials at some point. So a lot of different eyeballs, a lot of different types of people seeing Indianapolis at its best, doing what it does best.
And looking ahead to 2025, another opportunity, unique opportunity to showcase Indianapolis, what it has to offer with some March Madness here. And of course, the WNBA All-Star Game, which will be here, which I think will be a very interesting event. So 2025 does, shape up to be another big year for Indianapolis.
Absolutely. No, and we just keep getting these great opportunities, In 2025, we're going to start off the year with WWE Royal Rumble, which we've had WWE in Indianapolis. We had WrestleMania, back in the early 90s, right? But they haven't had much of a presence here with their big marquee, multi-day events like, SummerSlam and WrestleMania. And to lead off, there is Royal Rumble, which is a marquee event. It sells out stadiums all over the country. And that's the first of a really one-of-a-kind partnership that we've been able to develop with the Sports Corp and WWE to bring all of those events to Indianapolis over the course of the next 10, 12 years, culminating in WrestleMania. But it also brings that, there's a commitment to bring WWE events to other parts of the state, in Evansville and South Bend and other parts of the state where, we're just super proud of that. It's never been done before. We did it, right? That's a partnership that we were able to negotiate with the WWE. We have Billy Joel, we're really adding our concerts. So we have Billy Joel and Sting, and, more to come on other concerts we can't talk about yet. And then March Madness, and, we have WNBA All-Star, again, more eyeballs on Indianapolis, solidifying our reputation as a sports town. And really the WNBA All-Star Game in July is an incredible opportunity. What a wonderful person and impact that Caitlin Clark has been on the Fever, and what a great organization and team that has become. And we're going to show them off like never before, and really elevate, women's sports. And this is the moment in the movement for women's sports, and Indianapolis is going to be front and center in that movement. And I couldn't be more proud, and we have a lot less time to plan that event than we did for the NBA All-Star Game this past year. So, but if anybody can do it, it's Pacer Sports and Entertainment, the Indiana Fever, and downtown Indy.
I have no doubt about that. Andy Mallon, the executive director of the Capital Improvement Board here in Indianapolis. Andy, really appreciate you taking the time to join me on the podcast, and really appreciate all the work you and your team and others do to make Indianapolis look so great on a national and global stage. And I know that's going to be the case in the year ahead again. So, Andy, thanks very much. I look forward to seeing you soon.
It's my pleasure, my honor, Gary. Thanks so much.
All right. And thank you for joining us on this episode of the Business and Beyond podcast presented by PNC. It's a weekly conversation with achievers in business, sports, entertainment, and beyond. And you can download all of our episodes and get Indiana business news 24/7. All you have to do is go to InsideIndianaBusiness.com. I'm Gary Dick. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.